Tea time. Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin Brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. Now then, for today's tea, it's a return of a familiar classic. It is Earl Grey tea. But not the Wittard brand of Earl Grey I've had before, and a Twinings brand, which I may have uploaded the tea time for that one by now or not. I've been recording a lot of tea times to save up and upload at just convenient points in time. In any case, this Earl Grey tea is actually from the Williamson tea brand. And I've never actually heard of it before. I just found it in the cupboard with a reduced to 10p sticker on it. So, you know, safe sign and all. Let's see here, their information of Earl Grey, their information. I mean, it's Earl Grey, you probably all know about what Earl Grey is kind of like, but from our own Kaimosi farm in Kenya, this fragrant tea lingers in the mouth with the subtle aroma of Mediterranean bergamot, oranges, and the delicate taste of teas grown on our Kaimosi farm, combining to produce our iconic Earl Grey. Iconic I haven't actually had before, but I'll be finding out how this matches up to other Earl Greys. I found out the Wittards and Twinings taste very different. Twinings adds a hint of lemon to theirs, which is a bit odd, but a nice addition. But it does give a very different sort of impression than the Wittards brand. You know, the Twinings sort of version felt like a beginner-friendly one. But in any case, let's move on to the subject of today's tea time. And I'm going to confess that I'm a bit of an amateur. Okay, a lot of an amateur in regards to today's subject. I don't actually have... Not sure why I'm trying to give my opinions of it, given that it's the opinions of someone who hasn't actually been able to sit down and watch all of it properly at any point. But in any case, today's tea time is regarding EVO, which should technically be abbreviated as EVC. This tea time is EVO Observations, Part 1, hopefully. The hopefully part is because... Actually, I'll explain that in a little bit. EVO, basically, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically the big... fine game sort of tournament group sort of meeting sort of place that takes place every sort of year, and I'd probably say, to my knowledge, it's the biggest one. It's the one that a lot of people talk about. You know, I follow Maximilian Dudes, and that's the one which he gets really hyped for, sort of thing. That's the one which there's a variety of sort of fine games out there. It's not just a tournament dedicated to a single fine game, but there's a whole bunch of fine games. And it's certainly the one which gets a lot of the media attention and has even popped up on TV a few times for certain tournaments. So EVO is generally like the big one. And EVO, it's actually just short for Evolution, because the whole thing, as I said, it should be called EVC, actually is Evolution Championship Series. But yeah, basically it's the big fine game tournament sort of thing, with a lot of different fine game tournaments taking place in it. It's an American-based one, though they also have made a spin-off sort of EVO for EVO Japan, as it were. A lot of their entrants are primarily American and Japanese, but, you know, there's lots of mix of the other countries too. But yeah, I'm just here to give my sort of thoughts on the EVO lineup for this year, and just generally my opinions, a little bit of my opinions on EVO. Now, I will confess that I've never properly been able to watch EVO at the time of it sort of popping up. I tend to have missed it before. I have been able to watch a few EVO matches. I, of course, watched certain highlights from them. And I remember sitting down and watching the Pokken tournament at EVO, which was, I think, 2016 was when it took place. They've only had Pokken tournament at one EVO, to my knowledge, but I watched the Pokken tournament EVO and really enjoyed that. I've watched a few matches of a few random sort of games sort of that were at EVO. But the Pokken tournament was the one where I sort of like tracked down the finals and the sort of losers brackets and such, and actually watched quite a bit of the Pokken tournament one. And the part which I say the hopefully part 1 is because I hope to actually be able to properly sit down and watch EVO myself this year. At least a tournament, you know, around the time that it actually pops up, you know, close to it, rather than, I think the time I was watching the Pokken tournament was like a week afterwards sort of thing. I want to be able to actually sort of experience it, sort of, maybe, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure some of it is live streamed and such. You know, actually sort of get to watch it in a more recent time and be able to, you know, be in the midst of the scene, as it were. Okay, a little bit delayed, of course, because internet, you know, actually in there in person. But that's what I hope to be able to, and I hope to share my sort of thoughts on it as a result with a part 2. So this is a hopefully part 1. Anyway, to explain, EVO has several games that they have as their big sort of, these are the ones that are officially part of EVO, sort of games listed out each year. And the other games which don't sort of qualify, they'll generally be held as like side tournaments or just people bringing their sort of copies of the games to their consoles to just have fun playing them, as a little side event, so it's not the sort of main focus. So what we have here, let me just bring it up. I'm not sure if I'll probably try to include it in the video, probably won't be a problem too, but I'll have popping up on screen, or just the words as I mention each one, the 8 games which are going to be the focus of EVO this year. And I just wish to share my thoughts on it. So a lot of people probably have shared their thoughts on it before, but I just wish to share my thoughts on it. And the 8 games that will be of the focus of EVO 2018 will be Tekken 7, makes sense. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, makes sense. Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition, to my knowledge, I don't think Street Fighter ever has missed out on EVO. The EVO was actually set up as a Street Fighter 2 sort of tournament sort of area, so makes sense. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, interesting one because they pretty much have only just come out within a couple of months sort of thing, for that to be featured. So it's going to be entertaining, I'd say. I feel that makes it rather interesting, but at the same time, it also means it's a bit unknown how many people are going to be invested in BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle at the time. Is it really going to be a big draw sort of for people? There's both a pro and a con to having it pop up so soon. Guilty Gear, I think it's Guilty Gear Revelator Zerd 2, Zerd 3. Honestly, I can't tell with that sort of title symbol thing. The image I got up for it is kind of blurry. Injustice 2 has a subtitle, but I can't be bothered to try and read it out. Every Battle Defines You, that's it. But I'm pretty sure people just call it Injustice 2. I don't know how many people actually call it Injustice 2 Every Battle Defines You. Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is Melee, it's never going to die. It's going to remain forever. And Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is going to be pretty exciting. I think that's the one I'll be particularly on the lookout for, Dragon Ball FighterZ. I've watched footage of Dragon Ball FighterZ before, and I find it fun to watch, so a tournament of that will be pretty darn cool. In any case, a lot of people's first thoughts of the fighting game community to this EVO is that in a rare case, this is going to be one of the first EVOs in recent memory where Marvel vs. Capcom isn't featured at all. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, despite being a recently released game, well, recent as in it was only a few months, it's not even been a year old sort of thing, never even got to grace a single EVO main stage sort of thing, which is shocking. The fact that it's that unpopular that it just wasn't able to get there. I will say, by this time it will have actually started being uploaded, but me and Rafi have been playing through Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and whilst there are certainly problems with it, I feel they've actually made it harder rather than simpler in terms of the control layout compared to Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's still a pretty dynamic and fun game, so it's mostly the reception it's got in terms of its overall, the character choices, the DLC, sort of issues like that, which has given a very negative perception and has hindered its chances to even be at EVO. It's interesting to say the least. I will admit, I'm not a fan of watching Marvel vs. Capcom gameplay. That's actually something I really should discuss, which is games that are fun to play and games that are fun to watch, and they're not always the same. For instance, I like playing Dead or Alive, but I also like watching Dead or Alive. I am very ticked off that it's never popped up in EVO in recent memories, particularly Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, because I love Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. I love to play it and I love to watch it. Killer Instinct is a game that I'm not a fan of playing it. It seems a bit too complex to me, 6-button thing, and the recent Killer Instinct feels a bit too fast for me to try and sort of get to grips with. On the other hand, I love watching Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct, the recent reboot one that Xbox One launched with, is really fun to watch. Also helps, again, I watched Maximilian do sort of videos and such, and he was big into Killer Instinct. So I loved watching his videos on it, his commentary and such, and he was actually a commentator for the Killer Instinct tournaments. But in general, I feel Killer Instinct was a really fun one to watch. It flows really well, but you can still tell what's going on. And on the other end, the third sort of game to mention is, then you got something like Marvel vs. Capcom, which I find fun to play. Marvel vs. Capcom 3, for instance, loved playing it. However, watching it to me is incredibly boring. It's a bit too hectic to see what's going on half the time. A lot of the character choices are generally, usually when you see in the sort of tournament scene, they generally tend to be around the same few characters. And when they do the sort of launch, the camera pans up so quickly, and it's just a hard time following it. It just doesn't seem very fun to watch. Of these, in terms of what would be enjoyable to watch for me, Melee I know is a big sort of spectator one, so Melee's got a huge fan base and all, but I don't find Melee very fun to watch. I found Brawl more fun to watch. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, I find, in the middle ground. It's okay to watch. Not my sort of cup of tea, though. Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition. I find Street Fighter 5 is more fun to watch to me than Street Fighter 4, but still not invested in Street Fighter. Injustice 2, more fun than Mortal Kombat to watch for me, but I'm not a fan of NetherRealm games. I feel they just seem a bit too dull in terms of the visual aspect to me, which is ironic given their story modes are amazingly cinematic and everything, but in terms of the games themselves, I'm just not a fan of watching them sort of thing. Guilty and Tekken 7, never actually put too much thought into it. I will say here, I am a huge fan of Tekken 2. I absolutely loved Tekken 2. Tekken 3 is also pretty darn awesome, but I haven't really been in the series since then. And Tekken 7, I've not watched too much of it. I'd have to actually probably see a few videos, see what I think. And I will confess, I really do think Arc System Work games are a lot of fun to watch. I think I really like the BlazBlue games, or footage in the tournament scene. They're really fun. And I've experienced watching Dragon Ball FighterZ and Guilty Gear sort of footage thanks to Maximilian Dude's videos. And so, I think those would be fun to watch sort of thing. Out of all of these listed here, Dragon Ball FighterZ is the one that I'd want to watch out of the main 8 sort of thing. Of course, for me, fighting games I would rather watch include Dead or Alive, which isn't going to be featured at all. A Pokken Tournament, which isn't featured in the main 8. King of Fighters, which isn't featured in the main 8. I mean, hey, BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is going to be very new. They could have had SNK Heroines instead. Yeah, that would have been a good suggestion to have instead. And I'll explain why that would be a good suggestion in just a second. And Killer Instinct, I find that really fun watching the Killer Instinct fights. That's not included in the main 8. So all the games that I really like watching, and in the case of Dead or Alive and Pokken Tournament, really enjoy playing, aren't really going to be featured. Admittedly, I am a fan of playing BlazBlue games, so BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, even though I'm not getting it in favour of SNK Heroines now. Again, I can only buy so many games every year. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle and Dragon Ball FighterZ is the one which has the most appeal to me, of the main 8 sort of thing. But I am disappointed with the lineup of EVO this year, and it's a disappointment that comes about every time I see the EVO lineup. Although there is one that is new, and it's not the problem that most people will probably be thinking of, like the Marvel vs. Capcom situation. No, I don't have a problem with Marvel vs. Capcom being there. Honestly, not being there, sorry. Honestly, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 had been there for a tad too long, in my opinion, and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, whilst I feel it should have been given a chance, I can see why it's not there, and I don't mind too much because Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition is there. Which, though they are very different games, you'll hear my point in a second regarding that. My problems with EVO include, I'd say one, from the looks of it, there's no fan vote this time. Like, usually there's a fan vote in game, which is the fans get to vote on a game, which will be featuring in the main sort of set. I believe Super Smash Bros. For Wii U was one of them, because I remember the second place to that fan vote was actually the My Little Pony fighting game that was in the works, which is now had to be rebranded because of Hasbro. Sort of cease and desist issue, and is now being sort of remade as Them Fighting Herds, which I would love to check out once it arrives on consoles. Of course, it's getting a Steam release now, but once it arrives on consoles, I'd love to check Them Fighting Herds out. In any case, my problem here is the fact that you've got, of course, the main problem is that Super Smash Bros. Melee is like 17 years old now, and it's still there. Unfortunately, it's got a huge fan base, but from what I've heard from people, the Smash Bros. Melee fan base doesn't actually watch the other sort of tournaments. So once they finish watching theirs, you just got lots of empty seats and they all just disappear sort of thing. They don't intermingle with the other fighting game crowds, which is disappointing to hear. I'm not sure how true that is, but it's from what I've heard from quite a few accounts. But, I really feel like, come on. Although I'm not a huge fan of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, I do feel it succeeds, if it is a more proper successor to Super Smash Bros. Melee. Why do you cling on to Melee for so long? But, I do feel there should be terms of succession, and if people really want to see Super Smash Bros. Melee, then that should be included within the fan voting thing. It'd probably be fan voted through every single time, but come on now, guys, it's 17 years old. Maybe more than that, maybe less than that. I know it's at least over 10 years, and that's crazy. So then, what is my problem? Well, aside from the Smash Bros. Thing, which does kind of come under that same sort of problem, there's the situation that we have here BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, Guilty Gear Zerd, and Dragon Ball Fighters. And there's a similar problem to that as if they had Injustice 2 and more Combat, which they've had previous years. Or, say, if they had Street Fighter V Arcade Edition and Marvel vs. Capcom. There's 3 of them, of these games, all done by Arc System Works. And heck, if you count the Dragon Ball Fighters licensing issue, Tekken 7 and Dragon Ball Fighters share a publisher in the form of Bandai Namco. But my problem here is that the developers of the game development of the game isn't very well spread out in terms of covering more groups. Usually it tends to be a bit Capcom focused, now it's Arc System focused, and like with the Capcom focused side, I have an issue with that in terms of, that's disappointing to see that they're focusing so much on a company sort of thing, huge focus on Arc System Works, because, the companies, of course each game has their own flair, but each company has even further flair of their own stylings for the fighting games. And it's a shame that you got, I can accept, say if there's 2 Capcoms, not this year, but, I can accept there's, say, 2 Nintendo sort of thing, but there's 3 from Arc System Works. You could have at least kept 2. That's why I would suggest BlazBlue Cross Tackle Battle should have been replaced by something like, say, SNK Heroines, because that would have been an SNK sort of game. BlazBlue Cross Tackle Battle, although it's one I'm interested in watching, does feel very much the black sheep. It's going to come out very soon at the time, and it's yet a 3rd game made by Arc System Works sort of thing. Yeah, that just kind of annoys me, spreading out the development love amongst the main 8. Again, a lot of those fighting games will feature in side tournaments and such, but I do feel that it would have been better for the ones which people are going to mainly talk about, the ones which are going to be showing up on sort of like everyone's like top 5 moments sort of things, and the ones which are going to get, if they do get any, the media coverage and such. I really do feel that the company love should have been spread out, particularly in the fact that, SNK are cooking up a new game sort of thing, and should be in a similar situation with the BlazBlue Cross Tag. Oh, this is a new big fighting game, let's put it up there sort of thing. And, I was about to try my tea without announcing it. That's also my general sort of thoughts on the EVO lineup. Again, only maybe going to try and watch 1 or 2, but many are probably going to look for, see if there's any side events. I really want to see if there's a side tournament for sort of Dead or Alive I can get a look around to watching, and side tournament to Pokken Tournament. The Pokken Tournament was really fun. It was actually one I properly watched. It was enjoyable seeing how Weavile works very well at carrying Mewtwo from the looks of it. He was just so quick that even sort of like getting up, he could dodge out of Fire Spin because of how quick he was. Dear gosh, that Weavile was amazing. And it was interesting to see different mindset of like the American players sticking to their one character and the Japanese players switching up who they were using, sort of thing. But yeah, so, that's not going to be the main 8, so it's going to be even harder for me to find out. And I have difficulty finding the tournaments I want to watch as it is, so this will be interesting. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the EVO lineup. And now I'm going to try out this different Earl Grey. I've got it with milk, and let's try the Williamson Tea Earl Grey. Oh, wow. That's a little bit different. So let's see here. Could be that it's gone a bit too cold. Could be that I've put a bit too much milk in. Or it could be... and I've only brewed it for 2 minutes. They said brew it for at least 2 minutes, and then they put no upper limit recommendation, which is interesting, but... Gotta say, not a fan of the initial taste. Kind of weak, a little bit almost soapy in a sense. More like thyme sort of thing. But then, dear gosh, the Williamson tea has a great aftertaste to it. The taste really sort of starts to froth up in your mouth, as it were, afterwards, which is different from most Earl Grey. Most Earl Grey has the bit of kick immediately, and, the taste remains sort of thing, but it never changes. It never accelerates too much, as it were. It never enhances. The taste actually enhances a lot in your mouth. This is definitely a good tea for if you had it warm rather than waiting for like 15 minutes before trying it out. It would actually be good to sort of have a few sips every now and again and letting that taste simmer sort of thing. Interesting. Again, not a huge fan of that initial taste, but it does start to taste a lot better afterwards. So definitely worth having in my own spare time to try out the best way to have it. But I do think that small sips every now and again and let that taste simmer is what I'd recommend. But that was Williamson Tea Earl Grey, and this so far has been my kind of random tea time on EVO Observations Part 1, hopefully. I think I may just put EVO Observation in the title instead of just the whole thing. But yeah, As I said, the fighting games that are going to be of the main 8 shown off at EVO are Tekken 7, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition, and Guilty Gear Zerd Revelator 2, I think, I can't tell from this screen, Dragon Ball Fighter, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Injustice 2, Every Battle Defines You, and BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. I will probably only be watching Dragon Ball Fighter, bits of Dragon Ball Fighters, maybe a little bit of BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, because I'll be mostly trying to track down to see if any of those fighting games I'm really invested in, like Dead or Alive and Pokken Tournament, actually pop up in the side tournaments and have some highlights I can sort of watch and such. So then, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on a very amateur's discussion on EVO 2018, and cheer everyone!